Hello, my name's Dunfield, and I'm the pastor of the Baptist Church here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, and it's good to be with you again. A number of years ago, President Bush of the United States went to the funeral for President Brezhnev of the Soviet Union. Bush said that while he was standing there, he watched an amazing concept of civil disobedience. Brezhnev's wife gave a silent protest that some people feel may have been the greatest sign of civil disobedience up until that time, taking place in the Soviet Union. Here's what happened. She stood by her husband's casket through all the showing of dignitaries, politicians, and world leaders. And then, just as the soldiers went to put the casket down, at the top of the casket, she leaned over and made the sign of the cross over her husband. Here in the cathedral of atheistic communists, in which her husband was the leader, Mrs. Brezhnev made a sign that she hoped that her husband was wrong. She hoped that in a world to come, in a new age, that her husband would be shown mercy and grace by God, and that he would have hope. It's really an interesting story, because right now we live in a world without hope. A lot of people are really discouraged. They're discouraged over the protests. They're discouraged over COVID-19. They've got a lot of discouragement. And a lot of people say, you know, hope is just a word. It's just something that you use, you throw out there. But we have to live in a realistic world, and we have to live in a world of realism, and we have to live in a world where we don't have kind of pie in the sky, and hope is something that is kind of just out there on the edge. And what people are saying is you've got to be realistic. You know, this disease is here, this pandemic, these kind of actions going on in the United States are real. And so hope has no place. And yet Barack Obama, a black activist from Chicago, against all the odds, became President of the United States based upon a campaign of hope and change. Hope is just another word, not theologically, but just another word for faith, trust, believing that things can get better. Things don't have to be as they always are. Hope makes a difference because it brings you to do action. Action springs out of hope. A number of years ago in the United States, there was a pilot program took place in an inner city. What they did is they found that so many children were sick in hospitals that they were missing large amounts of school. They were falling behind. When they fell behind their classmates, they got discouraged and they dropped out. So they started a tutoring program in which they sent trained teachers and tutors into the hospitals to go work with these children in order to try to keep them motivated so that they would be able to learn their lessons and get back into school and do okay. One teacher called for a tutor, and she said that one young boy in her class was in the hospital. He had been in a fair length of time. She wasn't sure what was wrong with him, but she wondered if the tutor could go see him because they were working on an English project and they were learning about nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. And she said if he doesn't get this, he will fall behind in his English class. So the tutor went to the hospital, but she wasn't prepared for what she saw. The young boy had been burned severely. He had been in a lot of pain. He was now recovering, but the doctor said he's not recovering as he should. Mentally, he was in a bad place. He wasn't able to get over what had happened to him. He felt discouraged, and in fact, one of the nurses said, "We really are fearful for his future." The tutor said, "Well, there's not much chance and reason then for me to go ahead and to help him with verbs and adverbs and nouns if he's not going to make it." And the teacher said, or the nurse said, "You know what, don't do that. Go in anyway, talk to the boy. Help him over and show him these things," because she said he can understand and, you know, there's nothing wrong with his capacity. So the tutor went in and she spent her lesson with the young boy. She told him a thing or two about verbs, adjectives, and nouns, and Then she left and she felt totally discouraged on the way out. A few weeks later, the teacher called the tutor into her class and she said, "You know the young fellow you went to see at the hospital?" She said, "An amazing thing has taken place. His mother said that doctors say now that he's going to have a full recovery. He's starting to be able to do more and more things, and he's really getting positive." What had happened? The young boy had been discouraged. He believed that nobody cared, nothing was going to happen, and that life this is all it was. He would be a burn victim the rest of his life. The teacher coming in helped him. I'd like to read the quote from the young boy that he later told his doctor. He said to him, "You know, doctor, the school wouldn't send a teacher all the way over to this hospital in this part of town to teach me about nouns if they thought I was going to die." The young fellow learned hope. He had hope because he saw something in action, and as a result, his hope began to become more active. In the book of Hebrews, the 11th chapter, it reads this way, "Let us hold fast to the hope that we profess. For he who promises is faithful." Another way of reading that is, just as well we could say, let us hold fast to the faith that we have, because God is faithful with us. Now, hope's not a cop-out. It's not just a word of, well, I hope this or I hope that. Hope is built on faith. It means that you believe, and you believe enough that you make changes. Claire Booth Lewis once wrote, "There are no hopeless situations, just people who have grown hopeless about them." There's a cute little story told, and of course it's not true, but it might have been, of a young man who one time was arrested, and the king says that he was going to execute him the next day. The young fellow spoke before the king and he said, "Hey, I've got a deal." He said, "How about if you don't execute me for a year, I'll teach your horse how to fly." And the king said, "Teach my horse how to fly?" He said, "What have you got to lose? The end of the year, if I don't teach the horse how to fly, you can kill me. If I do, you've got a horse that can fly." The king says, "That's not a bad deal. I'll go along with it and let's see what happens." Someone asked him, he said, "Why in the world would you do that? You know a horse can't fly." And he says, "Well, it's this way. I had no hope. He was going to kill me the next day. This way, one of three things can happen. The king might die before the year's out, and no one want to carry out the sentence. I might die of natural causes, and the third thing is, maybe the horse will learn to fly." Hope always springs eternal in the breast. Hope is what keeps us motivated. And during this time of coronavirus and all of the things going on, you turn the news on at night and it can be pretty discouraging. It can be pretty despondent. But instead, keep hope. Your God loves you. He cares about you. He sees you. He pursues you with relentless love. You can have hope, faith. You can believe that this isn't how things always have to be, and that you can help change things in your life. Hope will lead to change. Remember Barack Obama? Hope and change. And he went from community organizer to President of the United States, because people want to believe in hope that brings about change in their lives. Well, my name's Lad Dunfield, and I'm the pastor of the St. Andrew's Baptist Church here in St. Andrews. And I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.